New York Giants fans, rise up. For the first time in 12 long years, the New York Giants have a playoff win. And it is so exciting. I'm recording this on a Victory Monday. It always comes out on a Tuesday. But man, doesn't it feel good to have that feeling of a fucking playoff victory again? The offense, man, we'll get into it. The defense, there's some shaky stuff, but we'll talk about it. But I can't believe that I'm saying we're going to the next round to face Philadelphia for a third time, and we just knocked off the third seed Minnesota Vikings. And it was a tough game. A lot of Giant fans, including myself, down to the final minutes of the game and even before the game, we're like, oh my God, we're not ready for this. But you know what? The New York Giants held on and they won the game. And we have a lot to go through. A lot on offense, a lot to do with the coaches, some returning players. It's going to be fun to go through. Like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Appreciate all the new subs coming in from the YouTube short, as well as the hype video, which I did work hard on, and I enjoyed working on it because, hey, listen, we won a game, and this is a team I love, and they're the team right now that's making me the most happiest that I root for. So how we do this is first thoughts, stats. I already went through first thoughts, so we'll go right into the stats and break down each individual section. Offense, defense, stock up, stock down, snap count, maybe some final thoughts at the end. So, let's go through the stats. Daniel Jones, 24, 35, 301 yards, 8.6 yards per throw, 2 touchdowns, 3 sacks taken, 81.2 QBR, and a passer rating 114.1. Kirk Cousins, 31 of 39, 273 yards, 7 yards per throw, 2 touchdowns, 85.2 QBR, and a passer rating of 102.9. The Giants rushing game, Daniel Jones was the lead ball carrier. 17 carries, 78 yards, 4.6 yards per carry. Saquon Barkley, 2 touchdowns, 5.9 yards per carry. Saquon Barkley also had 9 rushes for 53 yards. Matt Breida had 3 carries for 8 yards. Darius Slayton had a carry for 3 yards on a double reverse. Minnesota, Dalvin Cook, 4 yards per carry. Had an 11-yard rush, so we contained him pretty well, in my opinion. 15 carries, 60 yards, and Kirk Cousins had a rush from 1 yard. For the New York Football Giants in the receiving game, bruised, sore foot, Isaiah Hodgins. 8 receptions, 105 yards. We got to talk about him when we get to the offense, man. That's probably going to be the biggest discussion of the offense we've had all season. 1 touchdown. Darius Slayton, 4 receptions, 88 yards. Saquon Barkley, 5 receptions, 56 yards. Rich James, 4 receptions, 31 yards. Bellinger had 2 catches, 17 yards for a touchdown as well. For the Minnesota receiving game, though we did lock up Justin Jefferson to only 7 receptions, 47 yards, TJ Hawkinson did get a lot of receiving yards, got a lot of the attention. No touchdowns, surprisingly, but he had 10 receptions, 429 yards. KJ Osborne, 2 receptions, 20 yards, a touchdown, and Irv Smith caught a touchdown for 3 yards when the Giants were a little confused on defense. Gary Brightwell had a fumble, but it was out of bounds on a kickoff, and Jalen Reagor had a fumble. It was forced by Nick McLeod. It was recovered by Chris Boyd. It was after, I think, the Slayton drop? No, I think it may have been actually, I don't remember, but I'm pretty sure we punted on some scenario, and that's when McLeod had that big-ass fucking hit on Jalen Reagor, and Chris Boyd recovered it. Shout out to Jason Pinnock, though. Hopefully he's doing well. He obviously was carted off the field in that whole sequence of events. So for the Giants on defense, let's go through that. The lead tackler was Xavier McKinney, which his presence was absolutely felt. Giants had no sacks. In terms of tackles for loss, they had 5. Dexter Lawrence with 1, Darnay Holmes with 2, Jalen Smith with 1, and Azeez Ojulari with 1. 3 pass deflections, 1 by Cordell Flott, 1 by McKinney, and 1 by Leonard Williams. And then 11 quarterback hits. Obviously, we didn't sack the quarterback, but the pressure was being felt at different points in the game. 4 quarterback hits for Dexter Lawrence. I mean, he was just all over the field, in the backfield, really. Just taking on dudes. Garrett Bradbury, Ezra Cleveland. So he had a really good game. Tony Jefferson had a quarterback hit. Leonard Williams, he also had a really good game. We'll talk about it in the defensive side. 2 quarterback hits. Kayvon Thibodeau had a quarterback hit. Gerard Davis had a quarterback hit. Jihad Ward had a quarterback hit. Azeez Ojulari had a quarterback hit. So 11 QB hits. You compare that to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, they had more sacks than us. They also had fewer quarterback hits. And I thought the offensive line actually played pretty well throughout the game. Danielle Hunter, Eric Kendricks, and Jonathan Bullard had sacks. One of them, I think the Kendricks one, was when Daniel Jones just took that knee to try to let that clock run out. In terms of tackles for loss, Kendricks had 1, Danielle Hunter had 1, Dalvin Tomlinson had 1, Zadarius Smith had 1, Jonathan Bullard had 1. In terms of pass deflections, Harrison Phillips had 1, Chandon Sullivan had 1, Duke Shelley had 1, Eric Kendricks had 1, and then finally for quarterback hits, Kendricks with 1, Danielle Hunter with 2, and Jonathan Bullard with 1 as well. So let's go into the team stats. The Giants had 28 first downs, and the Vikings had 21. Passing first downs, Giants had 15, 16 for the Vikes. Giants had 11 rushing first downs, which says not a lot about, well, it does say about the frequency if you look deeper into it than most people will, because that just tells you they ran on short yardage situations, and Daniel Jones also picked up, how many first downs with his legs. They had 3 rushing first downs for penalties, 2 for each team. Third down efficiency, Giants were 7 for 13. They were pretty good to start the game, but eased off, cooled down a little bit towards the end of the game because they started like 7 for 8, and then they finished 0 for 5, which isn't great. But hey, listen, it's not bad for the third down efficiency, I guess, comparing to what we've had all season. 4-10, the Vikings were on third. Fourth down efficiency, the Giants were 2 for 2, and the Vikes were 1 for 2. Total plays 68 for the New York Giants, 56 for the Vikings. Giants had 431 total yards, 332 for the Vikings. Total drives, 9 for Big Blue. Vikings had 8 yards per play. Giants had 6.3, 5.9 for the Vikes. We already went over the passing and the rushing. Red zone attempts, both teams were 3 for 4, so only 1 field goal for each. You take 3 off of each. It's 28-21, so it's still a difference of 7 points, still a difference of a touchdown. There were no turnovers in the game, so actually it was a pretty clean, awesome playoff game. I would guess that a lot of people would say the same too, because I said this on Entertainer's stream. He had a call-in show on Saturday, and I also said this on Kyle Pizzle's stream. Even though the Jaguars came back, I said, look, obviously, this game being the Jaguars game, it just looks terrible to start, and we'll see if the Jaguars come back, which they did. But there's going to be a lot of outside pressure on the fan base and on the team, but the team won't take it. The team will be fine because you look at the first game was played, right? The first game was, I'm trying to think right now, it was NFC flavored. It was a 49er game. That game was a complete blowout in the second half. The Jaguar game was a complete blowout in the first half, and then obviously the Jags climbed back. That Dolphins game was surprisingly close, but there was still some bad quarterback play. And then you look at the Ravens game against the Bengals, it was close for some reason, but at the end of the day, in my personal opinion, you could say I have bias. I don't give a shit. This was the best game in terms of NFL product that has been out through the playoffs all weekend. Now, obviously, we'll see what happens with Dallas and Tampa Bay. We're going to be doing we already did Boys in the Big Apple. You guys are watching this on a Tuesday, listening to this on a Tuesday, so I don't really want to speak too much in the past tense, even though it's not the past tense yet. But this was a very good product for the NFL in terms of watching. And listen, the NFL is just better when the Giants are a good football team. But back to the team stats. Penalties, Giants had 5 for 45 yards and 3 for 12. The Vikings had, and time possession, 33-36 to 26-24. Sorry, I was drinking out of my winning glass. My winning cup, I should say. But let's talk about this offense, man. Let's talk about this offense. Awesome game plan from Mike Kafka. I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to move to the more obvious points that I've been harping on. A lot of people, including myself, are very hard on Mike Kafka to start the year because of the run tendencies on first down and just like, why are you not putting it in fucking Daniel Jones' hands? That's what I was pissed about. The Lions game, a little bit of the Cowboys game, the Texans game. I'm like, why didn't you just put it in Daniel Jones' hands? We could be a solid offense. And then they started doing that. The Commanders game the second time, that's when they started doing it. Obviously, there wasn't too much production offensively from Daniel Jones. I think he had like 160 yards. The Vikings game, obviously, we scored a ton of points. Not as much as we should have. 24 points for an offense that was fucking terrible most of the season. So there's that. Awesome game plan from Kafka that game. And you have the Colts game, another really well-called game from Kafka and executed well by the offense and Daniel Jones. Eagles game. With that, I mean, Davis Webb's your quarterback. You're playing the backups. It is what it is. But this game, and this is kind of where I bridge into Daniel Jones a little bit. Awesome game plan by Mike Kafka. And if you ask a lot of Giant fans, once again, bridging into Daniel Jones, if you ask a lot of Giant fans, including myself, I literally made predictions in the chat on the Nerding Out Sports preview stream. I said Daniel Jones would throw for 243 yards, have like 40 rushing yards, right? If you ask Giant fans, would Daniel Jones have a repeat performance against the Vikings like he did the first time in the playoffs under more pressure this time? But 95 to 97% would say he ain't going to have a repeat performance. The offense will be solid, but he's not going to have a repeat performance. Well, guess what? He had a repeat performance. No fucking turnovers. This is a game where you could say, if you want Daniel Jones back, or if the Giants want Daniel Jones back, or whoever, if you want to change your opinion on Daniel Jones, this is something to hang your hat on. I am ready to call Daniel Jones my franchise quarterback for right now. Now, I've done this in the past. After the Saints game, I said Daniel Jones is my franchise QB. Then he just descended. He wasn't very good after that. A lot of coaching and a lot of mistakes happened after that. Obviously, we're going to be playing a tougher defense in the coming week against Philly, no matter how you shape it. But to ask Daniel Jones in his first playoff game to come out balling, I don't care what type of defense he went up against, even though it does matter. The Vikings, they're not very good. There was a lot of wide open receivers. For him to sit here, be a quiet leader, to be mentally tough on the field, and take a lot of these hits, even though we really don't want him to, and just to carry this team, and not fully carry because Saquon Barkley had a part, the defense had a part, and so did Isaiah Hodgins. But a lot of people are turning their heads and recognizing Daniel Jones is a completely different quarterback than he was the last 2 years. And I don't know where people are on him in terms of, he's the franchise guy or bring him back for 1 year, but he deserves to be back next year. And in my personal opinion, this changes an outlook for a lot of different people and even the Giants, because there was, a lot of talk about Joe Shea not really liking Daniel Jones, Brian Daboll liking Daniel Jones. And I brought up earlier in the year, I said, look, I think Brian Daboll loves Daniel Jones. I don't think Joe Shane does. So they're going to have to figure that out. But I think Joe Shane now loves Daniel Jones because this team is winning with him. This team is winning with Saquon Barkley. So those two you absolutely have to bring back in some capacity. And, I know a lot of people were looking at the quarterback market, these different things, right? You don't have to get a quarterback now. You really don't. That's one less need for the Giants. You could attack linebacker. You could attack corner if you want. You could attack interior offensive line. You could attack wide receiver. You could attack another position of need. Punter if you want, right? Even though Jamie Gillen's punt was decent. I think he only punted once or twice, which is like something we haven't said in a while. But, man, oh man, Daniel Jones put on an absolute show. My hat tips to Daniel Jones. Saquon Barkley. I like the Saquon Barkley we're seeing. And this goes, once again, with the Daniel Jones, the Mike Kafka thing. I think it's a trifecta of things. Where you have Kafka, he's a smarter play caller. You have Daniel Jones, who is a smarter quarterback, and he's executing when he's getting more into his hands. Not too much into his hands, because it was like, obviously in the last few years where he's trying to put the team on his back, he makes stupid decisions. But Saquon Barkley isn't getting 35 carries a game. He's not getting 25 carries a game. He's barely getting 20. But the NFL, the future of the NFL, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys, and if you disagree with me, please explain. The future of the NFL is in the passing game. This is a passing league. This ain't a running league anymore. Because of the analytics, because of the game plans, because of players' health. And Saquon Barkley, obviously, was the Giants' offense for a lot of his career, right? You take a look at 2018, he was the Giants' offense outside of Odell Beckham Jr. You look at first part of 2022, he was the Giants' offense. Now, he's kind of sharing that with Daniel Jones, where he is a factor in the receiving game. And shout out to Mike Kafka. I'm just going to put one thing in. You guys saw that one check down that Daniel Jones had to Saquon Barkley, and Eric Kendricks just batted it away. It was just a straight check down, a sit route right there. And I said to my brother, one thing I'd like the Giants to adjust with this is something, and that's something being next time have Saquon in a moving check down. That way it's not stationary. He can have a safe route if his progressions downfield are not working. And guess what? Saquon's biggest reception of the day, pulling up the stats right now, Saquon's biggest reception of the day was a 24-yarder. It was, I don't know the type of route, but it was up and to the left against Eric Kendricks. And guess what? He had a 24-yard gain off of it. So that just shows how this coaching staff makes adjustments at certain points. But back to Saquon. Saquon has fresher legs. He is a different Saquon. Obviously, he's working off of 2 weeks rest, a week and a half, whatever you want to call it. And he's more efficient. Efficient in terms of working out for this offense and not wearing down his legs. That's why I didn't like the Texans game. Listen, we won that game. But Saquon had 35 carries, and then, boom, he was just going down. He was descending, right? He wasn't looking the same. But they're using him more efficiently and when needed, not forcing him the ball. That's why I love Saquon, what he's doing, Daniel Jones taking more of the responsibilities, and Mike Kafka. And we have to talk about Isaiah Hodgins. We really do. Dude is a warrior. We all know, for the most part, there was a blank injury report on Friday. Saturday, they say Isaiah Hodgins is on the injury report. He expected to play with an ankle injury. Most of you guys haven't seen, if you haven't already, maybe look on Twitter or something, find it somewhere, I guess. Isaiah Hodgins' ankle, the bottom of the foot, was completely purple. And then he puts on his story, I'm sorry if I didn't run fast enough. Dude, what are you worrying about? You got over 100 receiving yards and a touchdown in a playoff game, in your first playoff game. So there is no worry. There really isn't. I've been saying this for a while, and obviously we'll talk about Darius Slay and some of the other offensive weapons, but Isaiah Hodgins is a keeper, man. Number 2, number 3, number 4 wide receiver, whatever you want to do there. Obviously, you got Wandale coming back. He's coming off an ACL next year, but we're not talking about next year yet. But Isaiah Hodgins needs to be a Giant for the next few years if he continues this, because Daniel Jones is uplifting him. Isaiah Hodgins is rising in the moment, and this is just unbelievable progress we've seen from the offense. Now, Darius Slayton, I know we do the stock up, stock down at the end, and I don't want to give too many spoilers away. I happen to do that sometimes. But Slayton did have a big drop, but he also had a couple of nice receptions. So that's why I'm not going to totally fault him. And it was kind of good that Brian Dable didn't completely scream at him. He consoled him. He said, hey, listen, calm down. You'll be fine. We're going to win this game. And you just move on. Because you need a coach that does it. He screamed at him Colts game when he fumbled. He obviously dropped one big in this game. But obviously, cooler heads prevailed. And he calmed down. And the Giants are now heading to Philadelphia next week. And also Richie James was a contributor as well. He was fresher. And he was better than the first time he was a Vikings, though he did put up more yards. He didn't drop any passes that were like, oh my God, why the fuck did you drop that? And shout outs to Daniel Bellinger as well. He caught his first touchdown since the Ravens game. And then that game after that against Jaguars, he had that eye injury where someone literally poked his eye socket out. But shout outs to Belly, man. I mean, he's been a great blocker. Love him in motion. Obviously, there was that one false start illegal shift penalty that I really didn't like on his behalf, but obviously we put it in the end zone with him, and I just love to see Daniel Bellinger. I mean, he's been a godsend. And ask me how many tight ends the Giants have had as reliable as he is in their first year in the last few years, especially a mid-round pick like he was. Just going to say that. O-line played well for the most part. Neal struggled towards the end. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't want to get too into the negative, but I thought the first 4 O-linemen, really 5 because you do have the rotation to left guard, I thought they played well. Obviously, the film will tell us a couple of different things, but I thought the O-line played pretty well. In terms of Evan Neal, he's still not taking that third step. There were times he was just lunging, like he would be in his stance, and then he go to this side without taking too many steps. And then, there was a play where Daniel Jones, I think it was the wide open Darius Slayton play, where Danielle Hunter literally fell. A lot of people mistook it for a holding penalty. Obviously, it wasn't, but that was just Evan Neal getting beaten. If Danielle Hunter doesn't fall, guess what? He gets a Daniel Jones strip sack. So Neal needs to get better. It's not going to get any easier. I don't know what the coaches are doing in this whole situation to try to resolve that. But with that being said, it's not going to get any easier. Hassan Reddick, I don't know if Josh Sweat's going to play this week, but listen, we'll see. So I'm going to take a quick sip. We'll talk about the defense. We'll talk about them right now. So a lot of people, including myself, have kind of got on Wink Martindale about the soft zone game plan. And to be completely fair, yeah, I do kind of think this was not a great Wink game. Even though the defense held up for the most part, 24 points against a power offense with guys like Hawkinson, guys like Justin Jefferson, right? You can't complain too much. But this, I feel like, could have been just a little bit less close if the defense did their part in some areas, which included play calling. Obviously, I wasn't worried too much about blitzing. We got there. The Giants really didn't send too many blitzes. I think they had the lowest percentage of the season in their own category with 20-something%, which they usually blitz 44%, but it's down to 20-some-odd percent for this game. And listen, that was obviously a part of, let the front 4 get there, in which they got there, but they didn't get there officially with the sacks. I guess that Wink Martindale was trying to take the Patrick Graham approach and do the soft zone with the covering up top and say, listen, if you want to beat us, just beat us intermediately and not over the top because we'll have that covered. I almost predicted an Xavier McKinney interception, by the way. Once again, his presence was felt. But I feel like they could have attacked a little bit more. I know obviously it's easier said than done. They know more than we do. But Adoree Jackson, I feel like Justin Jefferson makes less impactful plays if he is man-man and you have somebody bracketed over the top. Maybe if you put Xavier McKinney or Julian Love on Hawkinson, or maybe even a guy like Nick McLeod, even though he's kind of struggled against tight ends at different points in the season, maybe, you get a different result there. Leave Fabian Moreau on Adam Thielen or McLeod on Adam Thielen because, last time Nick McLeod did a really good job of covering Adam Thielen. And he's played well over the last few weeks. He really has. Obviously got that big game against the Eagles. We've seen some increase in snaps, obviously, with Darnay Holmes. And, I don't like Darnay Holmes, but I thought he had a decent game, made a couple of tackles for loss. So he can tackle better than Cordell Flott, but I think Flott's better in coverage. We're going to get to the secondary, though, for its own separate entity. But one thing I'll compliment Wink Martindale is he adjusted late. I think Justin Jefferson was double covered on one of the last plays of the game. On that final drive of the Vikings, I want to say he was double covered, and Adoree Jackson had him in absolute lockdown. I think the total stats for Justin Jefferson against Adoree Jackson were 37 yards, 5 receptions, or something like that. So you can't complain about that. You really can't. A guy who's coming back from an MCL injury, hasn't played in a month and a half, and then he kind of locks up one of the best receivers in the league. Can't complain about that. But the Giants did get destroyed by TJ Hawkinson. No touchdowns for him, but was destroying the Giants, TJ Hawkinson was. It just happens to be a thing with tight ends. Mark Andrews did it against the Ravens. And shout out to Rob from Ring Out Sports. He actually kind of made a comparison to where the Giants played bad defensively for the first 3 quarters of this game and the Ravens game. And also, not to mention, they were torn up by their top tight end, TJ Hawkinson in this game, Mark Andrews in the last game. But adjustments were made at the end, and the Giants came out on fucking top. So there's that. Giants got 0 sacks, 11 quarterback hits. I thought the defensive line did their job. Leonard Williams, the first drive really wasn't that good. Not in a sense of, okay, he's not getting there, but he's getting there and he's missing tackles. Like Dalvin Cook had a couple of different lanes to go through. And later in the game, Leonard Williams was just a couple inches away from hitting the quarterback. Leonard Williams fell on a rep. He was going up against Ed Ingram, who probably didn't have a good day because, I mean, you had one side, it was Dexter Lawrence. The other side, Leonard Williams. He got 2 quarterback hits, probably a couple more pressures as well. But, Leonard Williams was just a couple of inches away from the quarterback multiple times. So, shout out to Leonard Williams. He showed up. He's obviously not going to be the guy that's heavy in the stat line. And maybe he isn't worth his money. But you know what? He showed up. He showed up the way he shows up. He makes plays so his teammates can make the bigger plays. And Dexter Lawrence, man, we got to pay this man. We got to keep this man. This guy absolutely shows up every single game. Obviously he had that bullshit roughing the passer penalty, which everybody and their fifth cousin, unless you're a Vikings fan, maybe if you're a Vikings fan and you're an unbiased Vikings fan, you'll admit that wasn't roughing the passer. And the refs, I will admit, Vikings fans, if you are watching this or listening to this, the refs were shitty on both sides. I mean, it was bad. The illegal contact penalty against the defense the one time when I think they were covering Darius Slayton, that wasn't really a penalty. The false start on Andrew Thomas, that wasn't called. That was a penalty. So I will sympathize with Viking fans over that. But back to Dexter Lawrence, showed up in a big way. Once again, yes, he didn't sack the quarterback, but he was obviously one of the best defensive players on the field. And really with this defense, outside of the play calling, you just look at it. If you have better linebackers, you could see like the cornerstone pieces that are there. Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney, Julian Love, Dexter Lawrence, Leo Williams, Kayvon Thibodeau. Those guys showed up on Sunday. But to finish the whole thing on Dexter Lawrence before we get to the secondary, he showed up in a big way. Bullshit roughing the passer, got to the quarterback multiple times. He was just laying in on Kirk Cousins. Like he was like a little kid jumps on his bed or something, or like most people cannonball in the pool or they jump into the pool. Dexter Lawrence was doing that on Kirk Cousins. So Dexter Lawrence, man, shout outs to you. Let's talk about the secondary a little bit. I'm just going to take a quick sip to refresh my voice. Besides Wink's soft zone, Adoree Jackson's presence was felt. Talked about it. I think he had 5 or 6 receptions, meaning Justin Jefferson, for a total of 37 yards. There was a 10-yard reception that really wasn't in his coverage area. And I think he was the one that laid the big hit on Justin Jefferson, and that popped up into the air and was nearly intercepted by Julian Love. I waited on it because I'm like, I don't know that was a catch. And it wasn't a catch. But with that being said, Adoree Jackson's presence was felt. I mean, it's not an easy task in zone coverage or man coverage to lock up Justin Jefferson coming off an MCL injury. Adoree Jackson, shouts to you, man. I hope the Giants keep you for a while. I just want to make sure on the pass deflection chart, it actually may have been McKinney who hit Justin Jefferson on that play. But either way, McKinney's presence was felt as well. I mean, there were times where he was covering Hawkinson, and Hawkinson wasn't really getting much. McKinney obviously almost had the interception downfield, which I would fucking argue that was OPI because, there was hand fighting, but it was mostly on Jefferson. Like, I thought he interfered. Now, obviously, McKinney should have tracked the ball a little bit better, went back deep in his range, and picked that off. But Justin Jefferson was, in my opinion, interfering with the possibility of McKinney getting the interception. And then obviously that big play on 4th down. Now, personally, Vikings fans, I don't know if I should sympathize you with it for this, but Kirk Cousins, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest. when he threw that check down, I was laughing. I'm like, why would you take the check down on 4th and 8 when you need 8 yards, not 3? And it was weird. Maybe it was a route that had Hawkinson, and then he moves up. I don't know what design was there. I don't know why Kirk Cousins was throwing it, but McKinney just made a game-saving tackle. His presence was felt. Darnay Holmes, as I said, had a solid game. Can't argue about that, even though he was beat at times. Jalen Smith was okay. Gerard Davis, a couple of mismatches in zone, especially along the sideline against, Adam Thielen that one play. There was one play where McKinney did fuck up majorly, though. It was Hawkinson down the sideline, and McKinney thought he was going to get a pick, but Kirk Cousins actually baited him, pump faked, and then over the top with Hawkinson. Julian Love absolutely obliterated him out of bounds. But Cordell Flott continues to be key in the little snaps he gets. I like this DB core. Now, obviously, the Giants may need to get another DB in the room, draft, free agency, whatever. But I like this DB core they're trying to build here. Jerome Henderson is a big part of it. He, honestly, not that I want him to, but he should get a look somewhere else as defensive coordinator. Just saying. Not for our sake, because we don't want him to leave. But if we're talking outside of Giant land and inside of Jerome Henderson land, he should get a look for defensive coordinator because he knows how to uplift these dudes. And Cordell Flott was not so good in the first half of the season. He wasn't. But that key play against KJ Osborne was a pretty solid play. Nick McLeod, he's been better over the last few weeks. Dory Jackson. Dory Jackson's Dory Jackson. Let's see. I feel like I'm missing somebody. Darnay Holmes, even though Darnay Holmes has his issues in man coverage, he made some solid plays attacking the screen game and the short passing game. So, shout-outs to him. But defense, even though I wasn't thrilled with the first 3 quarters, they came out when they needed to in the not in the first quarter, in the fourth quarter when it mattered. So, first 3 quarters weren't there. Fourth quarter, they were there when we needed them. And that's one of the most important parts. Stock up, stock down. O-line, Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley. I'm not going to rag too much on Slayton. I'll actually give him a stock up. Isaiah Hodgins, Daniel Bellinger, Rich James, Dexter Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Cordell Flott, Adoree Jackson, Xavier McKinney. I'll give Darnay Holmes one as well. Why not? Because I rag a lot on Darnay Holmes, but he made some solid plays in the screen game. And the Giants were burnt by screens last time. I think they were burnt by 1 or 2 this game. But Darnay Holmes made some plays. He read the defense well. At stock down, Evan Neal, Gerard Davis, and Jalen Smith. Let's go into them snap counts real quick. Offensively, Andrew Thomas, Feliciano, Mark Lewinsky, Evan Neal, and Daniel Jones played 100%. 92% for the injured Isaiah Hodgins. That is very, very good. And that's an understatement, too. Darius Slayton, Saquon Barkley, 90%. Daniel Bellinger, 82%. Ben Bredeson, 69%. Richie James, 60%. Lawrence Cager, 33%. Nick Gates, 31%. Matt Breida, 29%. Nick Vannett, 11%. Marcus Johnson, 7%. Kenny Galladay, 6%. Then you go to the defense. Xavier McKinney and Julian Love, both safeties, played 100% of the snaps. Not really much for Pinnock. Obviously, that would be used in 3 safety sets or when they need a guy to cover whenever that situation is. Dory Jackson, 96%. Tibbs, 93%. Leonard Williams, 91%. Dexter Lawrence, 89%. 88% for Fabian Moreau. 61% for Jalen Smith. 58% for Darnay Holmes, 56% for Gerard Davis. Jihad Ward, 54%. 39% for Tony Jefferson. 32% for O'Shane Ximines. 28% for Nick McLeod. 26% for Ryder Anderson. 19% for Landon Collins. 18% for Dane Belton, who also needs to play as well. He had a coverage rep on, on TJ Hawkinson. He played really well in the limited reps he got. So Dane Belton could also factor in, especially with this Pinnock injury. We'll see what happens with that. Azeez Ojulari, 14%. I'm a little worried about Azeez. He was walking back to the locker room fine, but they diagnosed it as a quad injury. Getting a little worried about him, I must say. Jason Pinnock, 12%. 12% also as well for Justin Ellis, 7% for Tamon Fox, and Cordell Flott, 5%. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the good stuff. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops video drops. Appreciate y'all coming back. Appreciate all the new subscribers in the building. Give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts for Big Blue in the Bronx. We're trying to grow it a little bit more on the Apple Podcast platform, so feel free to share out to all the good stuff. And we will see you next time. We'll see you on Saturday for the Eagles preview. I'm probably not going to have an interview because we saw the Eagles 2 weeks ago. Is it really worth interviewing another guy just to talk about the same stuff? We'll see when we get there, but peace out, guys. See you later. Stay cool.